Hi, I'm Sven Fössing from Cinemaware, and you are listening to Scene World Podcast.
Hello,
AJ.
it's
Joerg is
the
there.
Scene World Podcast. Yeah. Oh, that didn't really.
Oh,
work.
that was beautiful. What are you talking about?
No, that one. No, please.
Nice.
No, we talk into each other. That's bad. So, do you want to welcome the people or me?
You can. I'll let you do it.
Okay. Hello, everybody. This is the Scene World Podcast, and this time I'm welcoming you. And well, I hope you had a good time, and didn't wait too long for listening to this one.
In a minute, we're going to be talking to Kim Justice, who is one of the foremost YouTubers and personalities in the retro computing scene. So she's on in just a minute. Before that, we have some news. Joerg was at Gamescom, right?
So we were there with Martin Amann, Martin Wiesnowski, Arthur van Dam, and 3 helpers that we met at the McDonald's, the Gamescom before. So, yes, seriously.
Just drafting people from the McDonald's.
Yes, we get everybody convinced to work for Scene World. And those have a printing business, merchandise and stuff. So we had very good banners and all that. So it was pretty awesome. And we got some pretty good news at Gamescom, actually retro related. For example, on a Tuesday of Gamescom, though the first day of Gamescom, Ubisoft announced there will be a new Settlers part.
Ooh.
Which is actually one of those games that originally belonged to Blue Byte Software.
That was a big Amiga game, right?
Yes, and it was the first game to support 2 mouse. Sorry.
Joerg spent so much time yelling at Gamescom that
exactly.
Now he needs a lozenge. You need a lozenge, my man. Here you go. Here you go.
What is that?
A lozenge, like a throat drop.
I just took that.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say I'll just reach across the desk here and hand one to you.
Yeah, just did that.
Yeah, there you go.
Exactly. And it was the first game that supported 2 mouse players at the same time.
Really? I've never actually played the Settlers. I've heard of it, and I'm sure I've seen some kind of video of it. But how does that work? Two different mouses plugged in, or do you just share the one mouse?
Yeah, mice.
I wonder how many Amiga users actually had 2 mice.
I have no idea.
Because generally from what I've gathered, I've got an A500, and usually you have your mouse goes into like port 1, and port 2 is what you would plug your joystick into usually. Kind of the same with the 64. Port 1, I never really used it except for the mouse. Maybe 2 or 3 games might have used port 1 for the joystick, but usually it was port 2.
Yeah, like on the C64.
Right.
Never played it on the Amiga, as I never had an Amiga, but I played the original of '93 on a PC, and I actually tried it out, and it really worked with 2 mice.
No,
Whatever.
Mises.
So it worked. It worked.
Right. Okay.
If it worked on the Amiga too, I don't know, but maybe some listener to our show can email us or post a comment on our homepage. When you scroll down on the podcast episode page, you can leave a Facebook comment. Maybe you can leave a Facebook comment if simultaneous mouse support was added on the Amiga version, so we can tell our listeners about that the next time. And maybe if you have two mouse and you have the Amiga game, you can try it out and tell us. That would be awesome.
So this new version of Settlers, that's I imagine it's not for Amiga.
Well, yes, that's, I guess, for the new platforms like PC and stuff.
Right.
But I didn't hear any details about it yet. They just announced it at Gamescom and said it will happen. Which is interesting because Blue Byte was bought by Ubisoft, but it's still kind of an independent studio.
Right.
It's not like they changed the name or something. If you look at other publishers like EA, they take over the studios and close it.
Yeah.
Ubisoft doesn't try to, at least.
Sure.
So, of course, it now says Blue Byte Ubisoft, but it's still Blue Byte. It's now the German section of Ubisoft.
I miss old Electronic Arts, like when it was still Electronic Arts and not just EA. I was looking at some games on eBay. One of the things that I was noticing was there were a couple of EA or Electronic Arts games, Starflight 2, stuff like that, for sale with the whole box thing, with the map, the big fold out map and the manuals and the code wheel and all that junk that used to come with it. And I was thinking, like, Electronic Arts used to be cool way back when, and then something happened and they became EA and they're not so cool anymore. They had a really cool idea of like treating their developers like rock stars. You'd open up the Skate or Die, I remember. You'd open it up, and on the inside it had like the three coders and graphics guys and whatnot sitting up there like in their skater garb with bios
like
and
Activision
stuff.
did.
Yeah. Right. And now it's, you don't know who worked on any game anymore at EA. But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, that's true.
I got some news. While we're talking about Amiga,
yeah, sure.
I just found out about this thing. It's it's a Kickstarter for the Checkmate A1500 Plus Amiga PC case. So what this is
I was surprised about seeing a Kickstarter for a case. Who needs a new case? But hey, I'm not an Amiga user, so I have no idea.
Well, yeah, it's an interesting concept because what it is it's kind of a recreation of the Amiga 3000 case, right? So it looks like an Amiga 3000, except that it's made to hold. There's two flavors of it. It's either a PC case where you could put in your PC motherboard, your micro ATX or whatever they are now. I don't know.
Like the Commodore 64 case.
Yes. But there's also a second version, which is for Amiga motherboards, where you could take any Amiga motherboard and cram it into this case. And the one thing that I think is cool about it is that if you get the version for the 500, there's a riser card that plugs into your expansion, because the Amiga 500 it's got your trapdoor slot on the trapdoor in the bottom for your RAM expansion, but then on the left side, it's got like another little door that opens up. It's just an edge connector that's right on the motherboard, which I don't know it's a Zorro slot. I think it's a Zorro 2 or something. But what this does is it's a connector that goes on that and then rises up and gives you like three other connectors, so you can put cards and stuff onto this that you normally wouldn't be able to cram onto an Amiga 500 because of the way it's set up. So I thought that was pretty cool because that gives you a bit more functionality out of your 500 that you might not be able to otherwise get.
Because of the new case.
Yeah, because of the new case.
Because you have more space for cars.
Right, exactly. So, and they're getting up there. I mean, they have, right now, as we're recording this, it's got 29 days left on the Kickstarter. So by the time you're hearing this, it's probably got like 27 days left. But currently they've raised £33,500 out of the $77,000 they're looking for. In American dollars, that's $43,000 out of $100,000. So they're a little less than halfway there, and they still got a month left to go on this. So it's very possible they could make it.
Okay.
And
Wow.
that
So
would be kind of cool.
you think the main use of the new casing will be to have more cards inside the case instead of hanging them outside of the case?
Well, so the Amiga 500 was a weird duck, because it was kind of like the TI 99. You know how you'd put the expansion thing onto the side, and then you'd have to attach something else onto the side of that. And if you really wanted to get a lot of stuff, you would have like this 25-foot long computer with just one thing connected to the next, right next to each other. And that's kind of how the Amiga 500 is. The Amiga 500 has that slot on the side that, like right now, I have an ACA 500 plugged into it. So it's a little accelerator that sits there. But now that doesn't have a pass-through, so it's using up that slot. So what this does is you have like a riser card that plugs into that slot and then gives you extra slots that you can then plug in. So I can plug...
And that is part of the case.
Yes, that's one of the inclusions, they say.
I see. So what did people do without having such cases? Just having this slot used up and no other possibilities to attach more cards?
Yeah, pretty much. Some cards, like on an A500, some things, like there's hard drives that you can stick on the side, you know, your GVP hard drives or whatever. They'll have a pass-through that you can then plug something into the side of that.
Okay.
And I've seen a couple where they've got like 3 or 4 things plugged in. There's like a RAM expansion thing, and then there's another thing plugged into there, and then there's another thing plugged into that. But with this will allow you to kind of keep it within this little case.
Great.
And, yeah. And it also gives you the ability, because I'm pretty sure that's just a Zorro slot. So that gives you the ability to plug video cards or whatever else things that you could plug into an Amiga 2000 into your 500. I'm looking I'm looking right now. So there's it'll allow you to plug in standard Zorro 2 cards, including full size. You can have your ACA 500 with your A1200 accelerators. And you can plug Zorro 2 cards, or Zorro 3 cards into it too, but they'll run at Zorro 2 speeds.
And why is that?
Because the Amiga 500 only has a Zorro 2 slot. It doesn't have a Zorro 3 slot.
Thanks for explaining to me, because my first impression was like, why would you need a case? Can't you use any other case? Obviously, you can't.
Oh, well, I mean, I imagine you could. I've seen some Amiga 500 tower conversions. And I think that they did make those expansion cards, but I don't think that they're not common.
Sorry that I don't comment on it so much, but I have no idea about Amiga. And most of the time I have no idea what they're talking about, but it sounds interesting.
Yeah, there's some interesting stuff. If you want to check it out, pop over to amigasystems.com. That's where you can check it out and you can take part in the Kickstarter. Again, they're at a little under halfway there, and there's still about a month left, so it's entirely possible they could make their goals, which would be neat to see.
Will you participate?
I just might.
In the funding?
I just might,
okay.
Because I like the idea of putting my thing in a case that not a lot of people towerize, or well, I've seen some that are towerized, but it's usually a process to do because there's no like ready-made Amiga 500 tower cases that you can just flop that stuff in.
I have my Commodore 1 in a tower case.
But that was made
the problem is there are just no software updates anymore. Yeah, but it works. I mean, it works. It just doesn't work very perfectly.
It was an early. The C1 was one of those. C1 was a growing pain. I think we had to do that to get to where we are now, where we can have FPGA based machines.
Yeah, the GTB in contrast was really good.
Right, and that also was a stepping stone to things like the Mega 65.
That's true.
Which is still coming along. I was looking at the stats, and honestly, it's getting so close. The case is 89% done. The VHDL is 96% Geo's adaptation, 84%. Mainboard is 92%. Software bundle, 23%. They're still working on that. Brand establishment is up there. I am super impressed with the Mega 65 guys because they are totally like just chugging through this and just getting it done, even despite, how long it takes, whether they meet deadline or not. By God, they're getting it done. And supposedly in the first half of 2018, which is over, there were supposed to be 20 machines sent out to software developers and C65 engineers and whatnot, and community influencers and journalists. I haven't gotten one yet. Have you?
No.
Maybe we need to have these guys back on to see where they are. Seriously, because we did a follow up with them, and maybe it's time to do another follow up and just see how it's going because I'm still jazzed about this. I still really want this.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, so good. So you got the news this time.
Yeah.
Anything else I missed while I was at Gamescom?
Yeah, but I don't remember what. Let me look it up again. I wrote it down, and then it stopped being written down somewhere.
It's incredible how much you lose touch if you are away for 1 week at Gamescom.
Tell me
and
about
then the week after, you're concentrating on editing your video interviews.
Yeah. We also have another thing that I just saw is in news. We've talked about the FPGA SID, probably 8 or 9 trillion times in the podcast.
Yeah, but it wasn't released yet.
As of the last update that I see on it is from June, so not long ago, saying that they're releasing the hardware design to production, and they'll be getting the first pre-production samples a few weeks from the end of June. So they're going to do extensive testing, and they expect to have devices ready for sale beginning of September 2018. So it is now September 3rd as of the recording time. Nothing is for sale yet, and we haven't received anything about it. We did sign up. I did sign up for it. We haven't heard anything yet about it, but I'm still holding out hope. I mean, it was only less than. It was 2 months ago, June 24th, which is the end of June. So July passed, August passed, and we haven't heard anything. But that could because they're testing it. Maybe they have to tweak some things before final production. But I would love to know what they're doing and what the deal with it is. Especially if they do put it on sale. That would be... Because this could be a very good alternative to...
the Ultimate Swinset?
Yeah, because... I don't know that the Ultimate... Did they stop production on that?
No, they actually said they would offer it maybe from shops.
Okay.
But that's not certain yet.
Right. So, I mean...
So the last announcement was they consider stopping production.
Okay.
If they really do, nobody's knowing yet.
Right.
It's just rumors. It's nothing confirmed yet.
Yeah, there's some the Ultimate Swinsid and the other Swinsids that are around. Are good basic replacements for a SID. If you have a 64 that needs a SID, and SIDs are getting expensive and they're getting a little bit tough to find at times. And
they break a lot.
Yeah, so this could be a good valid thing to have. For me, I like having things like, and I know the Ultimate Swinsid did have mouse support. I like to have,
in contrast to the original,
right? That didn't because the SID chip also controls the mouse, pointers and stuff,
and paddle.
Yeah, and paddles. Yeah. So I like to have everything kind of working. So
No, you got it wrong. Let me correct that. Mouse and joystick worked, but paddles didn't.
Paddles did not. Okay.
Because paddles work like an analog joystick.
Right.
While mouse support is something totally independent.
Right. Okay.
And digital joystick too, but paddles work like an analog joystick.
Okay. So either way, for the general 64 user that's hooking it up to do some gaming or something, a Swin SID works fine because your joystick works, you get some sound, which is similar to what the SID would make. It's not exactly perfect, but then the SID, from SID to SID, sounds different. So, I mean... you know,
but it's still, anyway, a lot different.
It is different.
You can see it's more sterile and not going through analog filters.
Right, whereas the FPGA SID is... It has your paddle support. It has... it's actually two... It's a dual SID. There's two of them on the one thing. So you'll have dual SIDs with this device. And it's because it's FPGA based, it's a little bit better at copying what the SID does than the Swin SID. And from everything that I've seen, it sounds great.
But they didn't release any example yet using a lot of weird filters like Shake the Street from Turbo Outrun, the first course, or Mechanicus, which used the filters to make an electronic guitar.
Right.
They didn't use any examples like that.
If
so
you look
either
on
they
YouTube,
are not ready yet, or they just...
If you look on YouTube, there are some videos of it handling filters. I think that it's really going to come down to when it comes out, finding out, you know, what happens, and then potentially having some firmware updates, you know, or something that can kind of tweak it a little bit if there are any weirdnesses. But just in terms of functionality, I feel like it's a better solution altogether if it'll actually work, because I got two machines. I have a 64C, which is my main workhorse machine that I do most of my stuff on. It's got a SID-FX in it with a 6581 and an 8580. I also have a 128, a flat 128. I would love to have dual SIDs in there. I don't really want to get another SID-FX because that would require me to get the SID-FX and then get the SIDs to put into the SID-FX. Whereas with this could be the one-stop solution. Just slap it in there. It's good enough to go. I don't use the thing all the time. And it gives me what I want to be able to do with it, you know, in one small package. Which is why I signed up for it.
Well, the problem is FPGA based SIDs. They will be good if the C64 testing cartridge, the official one from Commodore, will not detect it as faulty. Right. Because that is happening with all the SIDs.
Oh, really?
Swin SIDs. Yeah, that's happening with all the Swin SIDs.
Interesting.
It's saying it's defect because it's not acting like a real SID. So, if it's sounding correct and all the testing software is detecting it as a real SID, then they did a good job.
Oh, okay.
And nowadays you have a lot of stuff that detects SIDs. SID-FX. It detects the Ultimate Swin SID as unknown SID model.
Okay.
Yeah, you have these the Commodore Mark II, which probably, I didn't try it, which probably has a similar problem. So there are a lot of applications nowadays that misdetect the Swin SID. And if they make an FPGA SID that acts like a real SID, is detected like a real SID, and sounds like a real SID, then they would have something awesome. Because FPGA-based SIDs or SIDs that sound like the original were promised since 2001. For example, the first time was the Commodore 1 was supposed to have a monster SID that never was released.
Right.
And, you know, we even spoke to Jens Schoenfeld, and he said it was possible to make a 100% perfect sounding SID replacement. Isn't released yet.
Right.
So a lot of people said it's possible, but nobody did it yet.
Yeah.
And you know, when we said at one podcast show in the news that the Swin SID Ultimate sounded pretty close to the
8580.
Yeah, exactly. Then Matte, who listened to it, said, no, please, in the next show say it's not so close because I'm not promising it to be sounding close. So, so yes. So if the FPGA SID is really what it's promised on the homepage, then we will have the first replacement SID that's actually detected as a SID without errors, that will work on all hardware that is based on SID detection, and that not alone that, it's also some games that have different filter options because of instruments.
There is a video online in which they have the FPGA SID and they're playing through a bunch of games that have music that is difficult for it, and then at the end they do show a bunch where it does not sound right at all. And this is earlier on in its production, so they may have fixed these things by now.
Yeah. Anyway, so there are a few challenges.
Yeah. Oh, there's a lot of challenges in recreating the SID.
And then you have the pitch problem of NTSC and PAL too.
Yeah.
And yeah. All those
which I'm discovering.
All those little things.
Which I'm discovering because I got my FM YAM
FM.
Yeah, I got my YAM FM, and it works like a charm. Works beautifully. The only difference is that when you play back songs that are half FM YAM and half SID, and because I've got an NTSC machine, the SID, the YAM FM's chip plays everything back at the correct pitch, correct speed, everything. The SID plays things back at the proper speed with it, but the pitch, it's pitched up because it's NTSC. So it sounds a hot mess because the pitch is so off. It's so off key from the other thing that it's just your options then are just to disconnect the audio from the SID and just use the FM.
I never actually used both at the same time.
That was one of the first things I tried, and it's just because you plug the audio from the SID into the YAM FM, and then you take the audio from the YAM FM and plug it into your external audio, and then it mixes them in the cartridge, and it can be rough when you're on NTSC. Unless the music was made for NTSC, in which case then it would sound weird on PAL.
Well, I hope your implementation for Scene will fix that.
I hope so too. Well, from what I gather, from what people were saying, it is properly pitch shifted for NTSC as well on our implementation of how we do the NTSC and PAL fixing.
Yes, exactly.
So in that case, then it shouldn't make a difference. But we'll see. Because some things where they say it's pitch shifted properly, it's not.
Well, I mean, we had 5 coders on it, and nobody said it's faulty, so I hope it's correct. I mean, we had 18 years to fix it if it was wrong.
Also in the news, we have, I think, probably one more thing, which is, so online services for the 64 exist. There's BBSs out there. There's 422 different variations of Wi-Fi modem you can get now. And so there's lots of BBSs. Our own Kevin Castiles runs one. It's called Centronian.
Gary too.
Gary runs Scorp's Portal. Yes, there's quite a few of them kicking around. There's also Q-Link Reloaded or Rebooted or whatever it is now. That's operating. There's people on there. I've been getting email from people on there almost daily, which is the weirdest thing to go. Like, let me go on to Q-Link to check my email. How freaking bizarre is that? But that exists. We talked a couple podcasts ago to Steve Sullivan, who is one of the guys behind Habitat, which was kind of an extension of Q-Link, but it's like a massive multiplayer online environment for the 64. Which we need to get you signed up to, because we haven't done that yet. And I've also got it set up so where I can record it. I can finally make my playthrough video on it. So there's that thing out. And then there's another one, which I had kind of heard peripherally about, but I didn't understand anything about it. It's called Plato, Plato. It is an older system. It's been around since the 60s, and I guess they were used largely on mainframes in schools and learning places. Learning places. Yeah, that's a great one. IR smart. So Plato was this thing that you would log into a specialized terminal to access, and it had games. There was, an online community happening in the 50s, or not the 50s, but the 60s and 70s, up through, I think the early 90s is when the last one went offline.
That is the one that I pointed you to, right?
Yes, you did.
That was totally awkward, and at first I didn't understand what the project was about.
Right. No, it's difficult because I'd never even heard of this before, and evidently this is way beyond even retro. This is like retro computing. But there are two servers currently up. The one that we're talking about is irata.online. And the thing is called Plato term. So there's a Plato term for the Mac, for the PC, for Linux, for the C64, for Atari 8-bits, for the Apple II, and now there's one for the TI-99, I think. And from talking to some people about it, it should theoretically run on anything. So that means that an Amiga version could come out in the future or whatever. And it's a strangely graphical thing. Like there's sort of line graphics, which I get the feeling like the original machines did vector graphics, but I could be wrong about that because I haven't really dug too much into it. And there is a learning curve because remember, this is the 60s and 70s before keyboards were really kind of were standardized. So when you're on there, there's a lot of press next to continue, and it's like, well, there is no next. What do you want me to press? Or like press the data key. Well, what the hell is that? So you need to kind of. There's a documentation you can download that has the layout on the C64 that tells you what keys do what. But it's really interesting, and I just dug into it finally for the first time a few nights ago. I downloaded the terminal and I set up my Wi-Fi modem for it. It's default at 2400 baud, so it's not super slow. But and 2400 baud compared to 1970s baud rates is pretty freaking good. But yeah, it's a really interesting thing with an online community, which is, I'd say, more active than the Q-Link community, because Q-Link is Commodore specific, whereas this has tons of different, again, Windows and Linux and Mac and C64 and TI-99 and Apple II and Atari 8-bit. So many different systems can log into this thing and make use of it. So I recommend people check out irata.online. Check out the term, download the one that is relevant for you. Read the documentation, because you need to read the documentation.
Nice. That sounds good.
Anyway, Kim Justice is right there, so we're going to go and talk to her now and discuss some retro computing stuff. So, we are here today with Kim Justice. She is one of the big YouTubers in the retro gaming community. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. It's looking forward to a good little chat.
Mm-hmm. Well, unfortunately, you've come to our podcast, so I don't know how good it'll be, but
I'm sure we can sort it all out.
Well, yeah. I guess let's start with the typical question: how did you actually start being a retro nerd? And did it start with the ZX Spectrum or with the C64, or how did it start?
Yeah, well, my first computer was a Spectrum. My dad used to work for Amstrad.
Ooh.
Yeah, and so I got a +2. That was pretty early on in my life. I was only about 4 years old at the time. So it kind of started from there, just playing like old Codemasters games, like the old Dizzy games, or that was things I loved back in the day, Death Chase. can't really pinpoint like the exact point where it's like, oh wow, I'm just gonna. It's like I started playing games then, like for as long back as I can remember, and just never stopped really. And I never stopped. Like, I wasn't ever one of those ones either who like as soon as like the new thing comes along, you don't play the old thing again. So I always kind of stuck with my Spectrum and my Amiga and my Mega Drive, even though I had like PlayStation or whatever around. I just like everything. So yeah, that's kind of how it just started from there.
So it was actually the ZX. That's pretty cool. So having someone that actually worked for it, you probably got a lot of cool stuff as it was released.
Yeah, not really. Alan Sugar wasn't there.
Oh wow!
It wasn't necessarily like the most giving man, but yeah, I think that's kind of how my dad became aware of it anyway. Because I think he was a driver for them, but he did work with Mr. Sugar a few times. If my memory serves me right. I mean, it was a long time ago. As I said, I was only barely a toddler back then. So
right.
But yeah, no, it did. But I mean, it was great back in those days because, I mean, in the Specky days, you could go to your local corner shop or a newsstand or whatever, and buy that budget Spectrum games worth £3 for a cassette tape, and so you could get classics with your pocket money. It was nothing like these days how much games cost. Like,
Oh yeah, I remember that here in the U.S. we had. The 64, I had a C64 growing up, and that's pretty much all I had for the longest time. But you could go to, Toys R Us or the local, a local toy store like that, and there was always a section in the back there with the, Key Punch software, which was, you could get for $5 or $10, you could get the game. It was usually a collection of games, and they were piss poor, awful budget games that I don't know where these dudes came from, but I had, and they were all these gold label discs. I had so many of them, and I still do have some of them, and they were, you look at them once and it's like, yeah, I don't ever want to see these again.
Yeah, sometimes you would get a bit of a duffer. But I mean, it's strange times. I mean, back in those days, like late 80s, early 90s, it seemed like everywhere kind of sold games. It's like bookshops sold games, corner shops. Like if you got taken to like a takeaway or a video rental shop, sometimes there'd even be like an arcade machine just in the corner. I mean, I remember playing there used to be a video shop down the end of my road, and used to play Shinobi on there, and I drag my dad there like every night. It's like not to rent a video, but because Shinobi was there. Just plunging
And
teasing it.
Great Britain is also known for actually preferring tape games over diskette games, right? And people always said when I spoke to people from UK that it's because why would you buy an expensive diskette version if you can get 2 tape games for the same price, right? Despite the slow loading time. British people obviously made tea between the loading times.
Yeah, do something else for those 3 minutes. I guess it depends on like the format that you get growing up. I mean, Spectrum was tape only for the longest time. I think. Well, I mean, obviously there was the +3 model which had discs, but that wasn't out till 1989. By which point the Spectrum had already been out for 7 years. I mean, C64s had tape and disc options, but even then, it's like obviously Americans, most C64s have the disc, but yeah, we'd always have the data set and get all the games on tape for that system.
Yeah, I didn't see a data set until years and years after I had my original. I got it in '86. I think it could have been '87. My brain doesn't work anymore, but but I had a disk drive with it, and then years later, my brother picked up a 64 from a garage sale or somewhere, and it had a couple of data sets with it, and it was my first time seeing cassettes, and they were the packaged cassettes, and with the in the case and everything, and I'm like, this could be cool. So I tried them out and got halfway through loading, and I'm like, this is not cool. I just never touched them again.
Well, I have a key experience with diskette releases from UK. And that was when I recently, like 3 months ago, I got a cheap copy of Last Ninja from System 3, which is a British publisher. And I would say Last Ninja, the first release, actually on diskette is a floppy killer, because they used a fast loader that has copy protection in it, and it's accessing the drive 100% all the time. So, and if of course, if you switch off the drive, you can't load the next level because all the code is erased. So that was the worst fast loader in an original game I've ever seen. So even back in the 80s, you were like killing your floppy if you want to play through the game. So they should have packaged it with a 1541 drive, just in case you break the one you already have.
Yeah, that's a serious workout.
Yeah.
For the floppy drive.
Yeah, I had this game that I loved playing when I was a kid, and I never finished playing it. I got it for Christmas, and I played it up until I got to a point. It came with this little orange card that told you how to do things. An Electronic Arts game. And, and of course, me being, 11, I lost it. And so when I got to the point in the game when I needed that card to understand what I'm doing, I have no idea what I'm doing. So I probably spent a good 6 months trying to figure this game out, and then finally just said, to hell with this, and put it away. Now I've gotten the game again, and no one seems to have been able to make a good version for emulators. And obviously it won't run on a D64 on the 64, so I actually got the original discs, went through this big, huge thing to try to back them up, because of course they're copy protected, and they don't want to do that. But every time you put a disc in and it accesses the discs, it's got this most violent, like, as there's that head hitting thing that the 1541 does. This is that times 1,000.
Yeah.
And I am shocked that my drive, I had my 1541 too, went bad after a while. It just stopped working, and I could never figure out why. And now I'm thinking, like, 6 months of that is what did it.
Well, that was just my experience. Yeah.
I had one game, one cassette game. It was really weird. It's Karnov on the Spectrum, and I always had the biggest trouble trying to load it up. It wasn't a good port or anything. It was okay. Graphics were alright, but for whatever reason, and I don't know why, it's like I would try to load it about 20 times, and then when I would open my manual and turn it to the page with the loading instruction in it. And it's not like loading games on the Spectrum was difficult. You just put it in load and press play. But it would only work if I was on that specific page of the manual. It's like it was like supernaturally, it like knows that you're not paying attention to the instructions, so it screws up.
Oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Weird things like that, without fail.
Yeah, anyway, my point was that System 3 really didn't pay attention a lot to disk drive owners. At least that was my impression.
They were a minority in England.
So, I wonder, how was it for you as a child? Did you dream... let me rephrase that question. Actually... Did you have this war, like, what is better, Spectrum or C64, or was it for you all good, all retro?
Well, it was kind of like the Spectrum C64. I mean, we certainly had that back in like the mid-80s, because the C64 did get pretty popular over here. I mean, by the time that I got the Spectrum, that time had kind of passed. Like, most people would have already been on to like Amiga, or Mega Drive was just on the way. So... And I mean, and I kind of got my Mega Drive 1992, so then it kind of became more like Mega Drive versus Super Nintendo. That would have been the one from my generation.
So, how did you progress further from that? I mean, you are a big YouTuber, and I wonder how did you make the transition?
In the 80s, did you dream of being a YouTuber?
Yes, I had a vision that 20 years from now I would be. The YouTube kind of started basically, I was in a few years ago, 2012. I was in university. I was doing a degree in TV production, so learning how to make videos, films, all of that. And during the summer break, I thought, well, I kind of need something because it's quite a long summer break for uni, about 4 months. And it's like, well, I need to keep my skills. I need to practice, basically. And so I just started because I'd already I'd like posted on message boards and I'd done silly little things here and there talking about old games. So I thought I'll make a review, and I like Sega, and at the time there weren't many Sega things online or that many Amiga things like of that sort of like edited review content. Plus, it was still kind of like a lot of stuff was quite negative still. You still had a lot of like people like ripping off AVGN, like
right?
Video game nerd. So I kind of thought, well, I'll just start doing this, see how it goes, and gradually it kind of got its audience. Like I did some videos early on. I did like my licensed games series, sort of like little things like my least. Funny enough, talking about trying to be positive. I did like a video on my least favorite Mega Drive games, which got quite successful. But just things like that, and then sort of gradually over the years, I kind of just found my style. So it kind of started off just like practicing, just as a hobby, because I like making videos, to where it is now, which is kind of my career. Just through building up the audience.
Is it a career? Because most people that making career out of it usually have like 500,000. Maybe I'm mistaken, but I always thought that under a certain limit you have to have a second job at least.
Well, it's a big chunk of my career. I mean, I have like various ways of making money. I do like journalism as well on the side. I do like games journalism. I do video editing times for other people, but it's all stuff that is kind of connected. Like it wouldn't happen without the YouTube channel. So essentially, it's all under the Kim Justice banner. Plus, on the YouTube, I've got the crowdfunding as well, which has been, I mean, Patreon has been a real boon for like creators who don't necessarily have 500,000 subscribers, because it allows them, if they're kind of good with the service and are able to provide something for the people who pledge them, it allows for great connection with your fans, and they can support you, you support them.
Right.
So it's kind of opened the game up and allowed, I think, quite a few more people to make it a bit more of like a free time living. I mean, my decision to kind of go full time was, I was in a job at the point, and it was kind of it was a job with no forward progression, like, and I mean, if you've never been in a job like that, you know, it's a bit of a frustrating thing to know, like, it's not really going to get better than this. So it's like, and the YouTube channel was going, I thought, well, let's see how it goes, and it's gone pretty okay so far.
So it's a typical YouTuber story. You were bored with your day life. I mean, hey, if you look at YouTubers and they tell you the story, that is like what 90% of YouTubers tell you, that they had a boring job with no forward progression.
Well, that's pretty much everybody in the world, and then suddenly it's I think everyone, if you ask them how they're doing, it's I have a boring job, but a lot of people don't have the skills or the wherewithal to think, like, oh, I can do this, I can, or don't have the yeah, exactly, the drive to kind of drop everything and just start doing it full time, because it's a risk. It is a risk.
It's difficult. Yeah, it's a chance that I felt I had to take. And I mean, the money is not much different, but it's not really about the money. It's about the fulfillment as well.
Right.
Like, being happy as well with what you're doing is more important really than a lot of things, I find.
Okay, so I wonder, as most YouTubers are bragging about that YouTube takes full time and they don't have time for anything else, meeting friends, answering to fans, going on Facebook, answering messages, people harassing them with tons of emails. That obviously didn't happen with you. So you make something different.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing with a lot of YouTubers, it kind of depends on what sort of like content you end up being famous for. I mean, if you're like someone who does like daily content, like that is a grind. I mean, if you're like, you have to like ideally have at least a couple of videos in the pipeline. You've got to be working to do something every day. I mean, that can be a pain in the arse. I mean, with the sort of things that I do, I mean, I try to make sure I get something out most every week, and I usually do that. But it's about, I mean, having, you know, done like actual work, like education and all that, you know, learning to like manage your time as well is kind of an important thing. I mean, it's YouTube can be, I mean, for people who feel like they're stuck in the daily grind and they're not managing their time and they're doing videos so frequently, it can be taxing on some people. I know a lot of people, especially recently, have talked about, you know, having like mental health problems, like from YouTube. And I mean, and it's hard. I mean, you've got to try and find that time to, you know, take a break sometimes. I think like if it's getting to you, I mean, and not just constantly feel like you have to serve the YouTube algorithm. Like if I don't upload today, it's gonna be a disastrous. My channel's gonna die.
Right.
It's managing time a lot of time. I mean, I'm able to manage my time pretty well. I make sure I don't work all the time. Like I try to keep it as almost like a 9-to-5 job. Like I have my on hours and off hours, and so then I have that time to do other stuff away from it.
So it's a matter of time framing. I see. Well, I mean, AJ is smiling, but that is like typical question that's just coming to my mind, you know, because the general opinion is, as soon as you're a YouTuber, your normal life ends, which is obviously not the case for everybody.
No, it's not the case for everyone. I mean, a lot of people I know are still able to. I mean, some people I know do a lot of work and they're still able, and they still hold down like a regular job. Still,
okay.
I mean, sometimes it's good to have that. I mean, it's good to have something part time as well, because that keeps you sort of in touch with the outside world.
Right.
Even if you just have like a couple of days doing, I don't know, working at a coffee shop or something, having something like that can be very useful. Just as long as, you know, you don't spend all your time in a small office, you know, slaving away in front of a computer, you know, you're okay.
Right. And there's also, you know,
There's some factors, of course.
Yeah. There's also individually, you know, different people work different ways. And, you know, for some people, editing and writing and producing the stuff is less of a challenge than for other people. You know, you know, one person might be able to write, film, and edit and put out a video in a day or two, whereas someone else just writing the thing might take a week.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it all depends. I mean, it depends on the size of the project as well. I mean, I'm thankfully now I quite enjoy editing. I enjoy like the busy work, the little like sort of mundane things you have to do. It kind of allows. It's like I can zone out a bit when I'm editing because I can put all the stuff together. But it's also a case sometimes you just have to be in the mood as well. Like I tend to work in spurts. Like I have like big spurts, like, and I'll suddenly just write and suddenly be like, oh wow, written load. And sometimes it's hard as well. Like you get a writer's block and it's like I can't think of anything. It depends on the time is right. Just try not to put too much pressure on yourself. Like that can be kind of a negative thing if you're really like pressuring yourself, thinking, "Oh God, I have to do this." Then it's a fine line between pressure and panic.
See that, Joerg?
Yeah. So I wonder, because that was recently a topic for certain people. How do you make sure you make creative content and that people are going to subscribe to your channel? Because there are so many retro YouTubers. And I wonder, is there anything you can produce that hasn't been talked about for 20 times already?
Yeah, it can be hard to find things that haven't already been done. I mean, I am a big believer in that having your own spin on things. Like, even if a topic has been covered, maybe your angle on it is different to other people, saying you can look at it in a different light. I don't know. I mean, there's still like lots of like weird little factoids out there that, you know, you can spin something from. Like, I don't know, Super Trolley was like a good video for that one. I mean, that was kind of something that hadn't been talked about. The game that was well, basically sponsored by someone who turned out to be a monster, Jimmy Savile.
Yeah,
and it's like sort of like looking at kind of dark things like that. I mean, you find these little things out, and try to make them into a YouTube video. I mean, there are still fresh topics out there, and also, I mean, I like to as well. Sometimes I'll do a video that's not necessarily about games. I'll do a video on like Mr. Blobby or something like that, like some classic old British TV. That's just a bit weird and wonderful. So I mean, that kind of helps freshen things up as well. And it's like, if something like that is successful, then it's like, if that's a hit, then that means that I've got a whole more things to look at on that front. Also, I mean, sometimes you try something and it's not a hit, and it's like, okay, maybe we'll try again next time with something else. But it's kind of that experimentation can be one of the fun things about YouTube. Like, rather than like just sticking to one thing, like just sticking to Sega or Spectrum or Amiga, like thinking, like, what else how can I broaden things?
Right. And there's also, feedback and whatnot that you can get from your audience helps to, round down because when you're doing stuff like that, you're sort of, while you are working for yourself, you're also kind of working for your audience as well.
Yeah.
So getting feedback from them, I would imagine, could also help to narrow down the sorts of things that you're looking at.
Definitely. I mean, I always listen to like the comments, always like have an idea of like sort of things that they'd like to see from me. And I mean, obviously, you have to filter out some stuff with the comments because you will sometimes just get quite negative things.
Well, yeah.
But sometimes, a lot of the time, I mean, I find I have a pretty decent comment section, and they'll come up with good ideas, or I'll get ideas from like other sources, like my girlfriend will come up with a good idea, and things like that. And it's like, okay, that's something that I could maybe work on.
But looking through your videos, you don't seem to be the kind of person that is disabling comments in the first place, because that is what some YouTubers are doing, that producing very controversial stuff, and then they are disabling comments just in case,
Yeah, I'm not a believer in disabling comments. You say what you want.
The YouTube comment section can be one of the worst places in the world, and I sort of enjoy it for that.
It can be an absolute hellscape at times.
Yeah,
like when you look at some people's like videos, it's like, oh, bloody hell. But I don't know, it's a part of YouTube. I mean, it's like early on, like if when I started YouTube, I got a negative comment like, oh, like it'd affect me. Mm-hmm. But I mean, it's been years now. It's like,
right.
I've had everything said to me that's going to be said to me, so I can just filter out the bad stuff and focus on actually the decent comments, of which there are loads. I mean, you'll probably get like 50 good comments and then one bad comment. So thinking too much about the bad comments doesn't really add up, like ratio wise.
But I guess constructive comments you use as a way to improve with future shows. I mean, I guess there's always a way of improving, especially in YouTube, different ways of cutting videos or whatever, or different techniques.
Yeah, getting more creative things, mixing things up, and you're just getting like everything to like get a crisper project. I mean, when you start out YouTube, I mean, people like sometimes ask, about how do I start YouTube, and it's like just experiment, just have fun with it at first, because at first it's only going to be a hobby. Like some people try immediately start and think they're going to like immediately make money, and that doesn't happen. It takes a while to make anything, let alone. I mean, I remember like I was so happy like 4 years ago. It's like I actually got my first like check, or not check, but payment from YouTube. And it was like 30 quid. So it's like.
And the next big thing is the play button, I guess, from YouTube.
The what?
Yeah, we should see
the
big play button. Yeah, the old 100K. I mean, it'll probably still be a while for me there, but I mean, YouTube is a crapshoot in a lot of ways. I mean, we can all have like different things to say advice, but I mean, you never know the thing with YouTube. You never really know like what's going to suddenly be successful. You might have an idea and think, oh, this is a banker, and then it flops, and then you have another video that's just like, oh, okay, this is just a kind of minor video, and then it's a hit. You never know with YouTube.
Right. Hey, Joerg, if we get a play button, who's gonna get it?
I have no idea.
There's so many people that are doing this. Like who do we like just kind of keep sending it to the next person every month? Like we each get to have it for a month?
Yeah.
I've no idea.
get a
I guess first you have to earn some money, and let's see. Well,
I'm still waiting for that to happen.
Well. Yeah. Well, anyway. Oh God, I totally forgot my question now.
I do love I do love critical comments on things. One of the first videos I did, one of the comments was like, dude sounds like he's on a respirator. And like, all right, maybe I should sit back further from the mic.
Don't eat the mic.
Yeah.
Frustrating things can happen in the community at times.
Oh, the community can be terrible. The community can be a horrible, horrible place.
And it's amazing how quickly things can change. I mean, the Spectrum community used to be such a nice place, for example, and then the Vega Plus happened.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the Vega Plus because I have been watching this thing. The ZX Spectrum, or the ZX Spectrum, as we say in the U.S., was never. It wasn't really big here in the U.S., but it's one of those things that. It's a fascinating machine, and I've always been kind of interested in it. And
they tried to break America, but failed miserably.
Yeah, it was the
Timex.
Yes, the Timex. Yeah, the Timex Sinclair. So but I've been watching this debacle with the ZX Spectrum Plus.
It's terrible.
Yeah, and so from what I understand, they've shipped out like demo units or something.
Yeah, I think about 10, 20 people maybe have received Vega, and there was about, I think, how many backers did they have? I think about 4,000 maybe.
Right.
I think had that back in. So yeah, basically I think, and a couple of people who got units. I know particularly one person who I know who did a video on it as guy Retro Led's Lair, Kieran. He did a video on his and just saying that, I mean, the quality of the unit compared to like the CGI like mock-ups they made is horrendous. Like even beyond the lowest expectations, you have to put like tons of force onto the buttons just to get them to work. You can't add games on the SD card without doing some ridiculous things. It crashes all the time. The screen flickers. The general build quality is so terrible. Someone said, like the top edge of the Vega unit, you could actually use it. Someone actually used it, and they could cut paper with it.
Jesus.
Oh my God!
It's not the most comfortable unit, apparently. I mean, I've not had the pleasure of holding one myself, but
it's not only a game machine; it's also a killing machine.
Yeah, and it's been they've Sinclair has pulled they can't use the branding on it now too, right?
They can't because Sky had when Sky bought Amstrad off Alan Sugar, they got the rights to Sinclair. And yeah, they said recently, like because of like the conduct of RCL Retro Computers, yeah, you're not allowed to use the branding. But which is one reason why perhaps these units that have come out are prototypes from a while ago, because the Sinclair branding's still on it, and it shouldn't be. They can't use it anymore. So if they're going to produce new units, then if they do, then that's obviously going to have to come off. Although a lot of it's just paper anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. So how did we get there? Because
how did we get there?
Yeah, because there's so many of these crowdfunded things are coming out for different machines, and we're seeing it with the 64 a lot. The 64 Mini is out, and there's a a mechanical keyboard that's being produced, and there's all these different things that are now being produced for the thing, and they're all fairly successful. So it's not like.
Well, the thing with the Vega, the Vega project, the original Vega, that started with perfectly good intentions. And the guys who did that, and that was mainly Paul Andrews, name is, and Chris Smith. And then they get into partnership with a guy called David Levy, Dr. David Levy. And that's where the Vega Plus comes in. And then they left the project. And funny enough, I know that I'm pretty sure Paul Andrews and Chris Smith worked on the C64 Mini, I believe. And so there's been a lot of legal squabbles in the couple of years since. It was very, very acrimonious, and still is to this day, between the previous owners of RCL and the current. And David Lewis, he has a history in chess, I believe. kind of where he started. And I know I think he also produced back in the day he produced a very obscure Z80 machine, the Enterprise 1 to 8. Don't know if even you know that.
I have heard of it. I don't know.
It's a very obscure machine. I think it got popular in Hungary.
Okay.
So that was kind of his background. But then the Vega Plus, yeah, I mean, people kind of gradually realised that because RCL just weren't really showing anything. It was like they had a few prototypes, but that was it, and it just gradually snowballed from there. Like just relations between company and consumer reached all-time lows week on week, and it got very ugly.
And they were also using. They raised what? Like they raised a boatload of money for it.
Mm.
And I mean, it's all going towards legal fees and lunches and
and
things
God
that
knows what else.
Yeah, stuff that has nothing to do with the development of the system itself.
Well, the thing that worries me is also crowdfunding projects. I have to say the Atari VCS worries me.
Oh, the new one?
Yeah, the new one that worries me. I mean, I won't not be worried about it until they actually show something physical, because like it looks fantastic in pictures, but these are just CGI mock-ups. These are just renders.
Yeah,
These
but
are
it's just an Intel box, though. It's an x86 powered thing.
I mean, but that made. I know. I did not think that would make as much as it did.
It did. Well, within 2 days, it was funded or something.
Yeah.
Easy.
I think it was funded within an hour.
Oh, you see, even faster. Yeah, see, no
Yikes.
problem.
So yeah, I mean, if that comes out, and I mean, if it comes out, then fine. And it ends up just being like, you know, a Noia, in which kind of people kind of ended up thinking they wanted it more than they actually wanted it. Then okay, but if it ends up being vaporware, that's
Well,
gonna be.
I mean, there were other examples like the DTV. Like the C64 Mini that was called D64. And I remember 2016 when the Indiegogo started, everybody was like, "Oh, Whopperware, this is fake, and he's never going to show up anything. And it's going to be crap." And then AJ and I were talking about it, and it was like, "Wait a second, that's Darren Mayburn. He did the DTV. Why would he release crap, you know, and steal people's money? I mean, he has a good reputation from the DTV." So we invited him to the podcast. At this time, I think we were one of the first that actually talked to him, because others were like, "Oh, I don't want to be connected to that project in any way." Yeah. And sometimes maybe people are over careful, but on the other side, with the VCS, people are not careful enough. It's like either side. There's no middle way. Yeah. That's at least my opinion, my feeling about it. People are either too happy and throwing money at people that are not deserving it, or being too skeptical, you know?
What do you think of the new the Intellivision relaunch?
Well, it sounds like they're going to go about that one. I mean, that's Tommy Tallarico's thing, isn't it? I mean, I think they've already kind of said that they're not going to do crowdfunding for it.
Right.
Whether that holds true or not. Okay. I mean, I'm interested to see how that looks. I mean, it's not something that really interests me much myself. I mean, Intellivision has never really been something that interests me.
It's terrible. It's utterly awful.
I mean, yeah, it's like more. I mean, I don't think we never. I mean, I think Intellivision did come out over here, but I don't think many people bought it. So there's not much UK nostalgia for it. I do have the Intellivision Lives PS2 collection. That's about it. There's a couple of cool games on it.
I didn't even hear about it until I saw one person playing Donkey Kong. It was like, okay,
yeah,
okay.
I'm curious about it because, you know, they're not. The VCS, the Atari VCS, it's an x86 platform. I think it's like Steam powered or something. So it's just generally it's an off the shelf box for playing games. Whereas the Intellivision, they haven't said what it is, but they're looking at like a custom architecture, and they've got, you know, no 3D games. They have to be simple. If you can't explain it in one paragraph, then they're not going to publish it. And it's a whole different strategy than we're seeing a lot of people doing, and I'm just kind of curious to see how it works out in the end.
We'll be interested to see. I mean, I think they've got it. They're doing a press event in November, I think it is. So yeah, I mean, I would look forward to seeing what they come up with. If it's going to be something different than just a regular old box with like a pie shoved in it or whatever.
Right.
Well, I mean, also the main problem we have here is, might it be with YouTube or producing retro machines? Everybody is trying to cash in on the retro hype.
Yes.
So
yeah. Are we creating a bubble? Are we building a rod for our own back, sort of thing?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously that's something for the makers of these machines to write about. I mean, for the buyers, that is what it is. It's
Right.
like if the bubble bursts, then hey, prices go down.
Mm-hmm.
But
I would love retro to be cheap again. I would love that.
certainly it'd be good. I mean, I well remember using to buy, like back in the early 2000s, Mega Drive games, £3 a pop. Nice.
Yeah.
And
I think people are figuring out too that games are, and again, this is something that we've said over and over, but a good game is a good game. It doesn't matter if it's pixely and old or if it's brandly new. And people are starting to understand that, and so it's not so.
Yeah, true.
It's not so taboo to go back to the old stuff anymore.
I mean, I don't think we're probably ever going to have like a big jump in generations, like as there was from, say, Mega Drive to PlayStation.
Right.
I don't think there's ever going to be that sort of jump again. So yeah, I think like the groundbreaking technical side of things, that used to be the big thing back in those days, like which consoles got so many bits and everything. if you ask them, like, how many bits are in a PS4?
Yeah.
You'd be able to actually answer that question. Does it matter anymore? Is that really a thing?
Does it have blast processing?
Does it have? Yeah.
Marketing.
Yeah. So yeah, the technical side doesn't really excite people as much as the actual quality of the software. So yeah, I mean, I think with that sort of market, yeah, people do realise that the good stuff now or good stuff then is good stuff now, good stuff forever.
Right. The only jump I can see in technology is if they can somehow eliminate like the dead eyes of people in these games. It totally throws me out. If you're playing a game and there's it's hyper realistic graphics and then it goes onto someone's face and it's like, duh!
Yeah. Yeah. I know.
Okay, never paid attention to that.
Yeah, it's so jarring. If it's cartoonish, you can deal with it because it's cartoonish. But when everything looks perfectly normal, then you get to their face and they've got just these lifeless shark eyes in their skulls.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it is a bit jarring.
Yeah.
But I think another cool thing about like gaming today is that, I mean, with like platforms, I mean, obviously it's kind of sad that physical content is becoming less and less of a thing, but I think we have seen kind of a return of like almost like bedroom coding in a way, and like mid-range software that kind of wasn't really there, especially not in like the last generation, like the PS3 360 generation, when it was just so much just all mainstream pretty much, even the indie titles. It's like now you have like games like just being made by one person again, becoming really successful. I mean, Undertale is probably the grand example of that in the past couple of years. And we're
Flappy
kind of
Bird.
bedroom coding. Sorry?
Flappy Bird.
Yeah, Flappy Bird is a huge example. And so seeing a lot of that again, kind of like game development is coming very open to people. You don't need loads of money to get into it. And back end, you can do it yourself.
Right.
Well, if you don't have the money, use crowdfunding. Well, I think if we ever have a burst of a bubble, it will cause some game publishers to actually close down. Because what I noticed arranging interviews for Gamescom here in Germany that I'm going to attend soon is that a lot of publishers actually buying IPs from old DOS games or something.
Yeah.
And
It's becoming a bit
like a new Larry game, like a new Aquanox.
Is Aquanox ever going to be like what is the status? Because I keep getting emails about Aquanox and I keep getting emails like here's a new event that you can try out, but it's like, is the game does it exist? Like, is it a thing you can play?
Well, yes. I mean, because I have a beta, but
because this is going on 4 years now.
Yeah, it's taking a bit longer than expected, but they are hoping to release it by the end of this year.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing that small developers take longer to release games,
Well,
or
because-
games are not as good as announced. For example, No Man's Sky was a prime example there.
Yeah.
No Man's Sky, yeah. I mean, certainly when it first came out, I mean, they're doing well with it now. But, I mean, it took a long time to get it there, which I respect them for, because, I mean, a lot of people, especially after the first reactions they got, would have probably just left the table. But they spent the time actually making it into, like, the game it was supposed to be. That. So, you know, I respect them for that. And they even got up to mixed reviews on Steam, which they made quite a celebration about. Like, sure,
Wow.
we're mixed now, yes! After just being negative for so long.
But maybe this is a bit off topic, because I don't know. Are you even into newer games? Because that's clearly not retro.
It depends. I mean, there's some. I mostly do stick with my old things, but if there's something new that I like, then I'll happily play it. I tend to prefer more plug and play, you know, pick up and play experiences, like short-term things, as opposed to like sitting down and playing a game that I know is going to take me 60 hours or whatever.
Right.
And so yeah, that's just kind of my thing, especially as I get older. I like more arcadey stuff. So I like anything new that kind of sticks to that value, but generally, you know, the old stuff's always just.
I have to admit, I bought No Man's Sky because of this unique graphic style. I thought it was graphically absolutely interesting and outstanding, and I wanted to play this game. And I wasn't disappointed because I had no high expectations about the gameplay or how much you can do, so I never was disappointed, you know. So,
Right.
I'm an easy customer. Hey.
Well, what was the big complaint about it?
That you couldn't, that two people couldn't meet in the universe and see each other in real while they should. That the planets were too equal, even though it was supposed to be thousands and 10,000s of possible mixed combinations.
Yeah.
And that variety never actually happened.
Yeah.
But maybe Kim, you know better than me.
Yeah, the marketing made it seem different to what it was like. The marketing like made it seem like it was going to be like quite a big multiplayer thing, that there was going to be so much variation, and there is now. But I think also another thing, like aside from those kind of fairly like over the top comments made by Sean Murray, was like it was kind of the game, especially at first, which would have been all right if it was like a cheaper game. But Sony like markets it as a major title, and Hello Games, the guys who make it, is only a small studio. It's like a 10-person studio, I think. It's not many.
Yeah.
So it's like if it had been like a £30 game, £20 game even, it'd done all right. But because it was like a full price game, people got a bit annoyed, and it was quite unstable as well on release, and there were all like technical issues. Plus, it wasn't as promised. So, yeah, people got very annoyed. It's very toxic again.
So, did you actually play it yourself?
I've played bits of it. I mean, I've had a look at it. It doesn't really seem majorly like my type of thing. It's one of those games. I do have it, actually. I have it on my Steam. But it's like many games on my Steam, it's never been played on there.
Wow.
Yeah.
So maybe we should try and meet each other.
I got
in
a few
the game.
of those.
Yeah, I do think, yeah. I think maybe, you know, if I do fire up Steam, maybe I'll actually try it out, especially now. Because it looks really good now. Like,
Yeah,
with
with the patches and the content.
The No Man's Sky next. I see like people post screenshots and everything. That looks good.
So, let's getting back to the retro topic a bit for a change. What's your opinion about Nintendo re-releasing, you know, NES, Classic Mini, Super NES, Classic Mini, and so on? And I actually was talking to the PRs, to the PR company of Nintendo, and they told me, quote, the chance that Nintendo will ever talk about retro to any media is zero. So I wonder why they never talk to anybody about it. They only want our money, but they never actually want to talk to the press about the retro topic.
They like to keep things a bit mysterious, don't they?
Yeah, exactly.
Sadly, yeah. I mean, because there's so much that they obviously have in their vaults that you kind of think if they open them up more, then you can imagine, just imagine the sort of things that would be there. But that is their prerogative, unfortunately. I think, a lot of it is because it's kind of been their prerogative in a lot of things. They don't think they really understand new media in a lot of ways. They try their best, but I think the core of the business, the head honchos, it's not really something that interests them to embrace YouTube gamers, that sort of thing. They kind of there's always been quite standoffish with us. But as far as the actual machines themselves, they're fine projects. They've obviously done very well for themselves, and I presume that there'll be a Nintendo 64 one coming soon. They're fine. They're fine for what they are, and it's perfect for someone who just wants, to have a bunch the best games that they know from their childhood, and be able to just bung that into their modern telly without having to, get into the whole retro scene and do up a NES or SNES or whatever from scratch. It's not some. It's good for the more casual game. I've got an actual Famicom and SNES with EverDrives.
Okay. Now you just said the word SNES. Okay.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Yeah.
When you were younger, and it was actually a popular. That was the current system.
Mm-hmm.
Did you refer to it as the SNES back then?
Yes, absolutely.
Did. Okay, because we're hearing it a lot. We're hearing it a lot. SNES, and for the life of me, when I was younger, and that was the system, we called it the Super NES or the Super Nintendo. We never called it the SNES. Was not a thing that we ever said.
Yeah, in Germany too. You said Super Nintendo, you said SNES, but you didn't say SNES. Oh my god!
I don't know where it came from. It just must be one of those weird UK things. When someone does, whenever it was first mentioned on Games Master, they said SNES or Super NES was one we often used to say.
Super NES, even weirder. Oh my god!
Yeah, but then you'd get with it's in Australia they don't say Sega, they say Sega.
Okay.
Where'd that come from?
Yeah,
but they didn't change the games for it because at Sony games they said Sega. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just one of those weird things.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been trying to figure out the etymology of that for a couple of years now because everyone's.
I've to find it out. I don't know myself.
So, let's talk a bit again about YouTube. How do you start your usual idea for video?
How do I start my ideas?
If it's not too much secrets.
No, it's not really secrets. I have various sources. I get requests, and that's kind of one thing that's also part of my Patreon, that people request things on there. So that's always a good place to, and that's cool because then that often gives me something to play that I might not have touched before. I come up. I have I don't really, sometimes I have Google documents filled perhaps the starts of ideas, and sometimes I'll get something from there, or there'll be other stuff that I put there and then I never think about again. YouTube comments as well. Going back to that, sometimes they come up with a good idea for something. I think it was there when I got an idea for doing a bunch of football games without actually playing them, and just to look at what the computer did when you didn't touch it, which kind of was quite an interesting little experiment.
I always love doing that.
It's great to play a game and not play it.
Yeah. I used to do whole seasons in the hockey, NHL, whatever, and I just have the computer play itself.
I do that a lot with I love playing Fire Pro Wrestling, and I don't usually play it. I just sim matches between two wrestlers on the computer, and it actually that's quite good.
Yeah, it's just basically like watching wrestling.
Yeah. Like early Let's Plays, just let the computer play each against each other.
Exactly. Yeah. See what it does.
Yeah.
It'll be quite interesting.
Interesting. One thing that I figured, since we are doing Scene World, is there are a lot of topics that actually nobody is touching, or people that nobody is talking to. For example, I remember 7 years ago when we released an interview with David Crane from Atari and Chris Crick from Epix, who was sound manager's Epix, The first reaction from people were like, are those interviews fake? I was like, okay, I spent 8 years of my lifetime finding the phone number of Chris Crick. I'm pretty sure it's not fake. And another thing I noticed is very little is known about for example, the Brazilian market, about the Mega Drive tech toy and so on.
Yeah.
So I wonder why some topics are never covered. Are people like yourself or other YouTubers not spending enough time trying to track down the truth or the people, or just wonder?
I think it kind of depends. I mean, it's funny you mentioned that Sega in Brazil, because I did a video on that. So it's like, I mean, because I was always interested in that, and you get some cool Brazilian exclusives as well for the Master System and Mega Drive. I mean, a lot of it depends on how much research some people do. I mean, there are some people who really go the whole 9 yards with research. They'll have a look at contemporary magazines. They'll try and see even if they can get word from the actual people themselves. And some people are, better at presenting stuff they get from a surface level. They go to Wikipedia. It depends on how much work you're willing to put in and interested in the subject. I mean, as I say, I think it's only been in the past couple of years where I think that there's been kind of a surge in European-based YouTubers who've had quite good channels and quite successful channels, people like myself, DJ Slope, Nostalgia Nerd.
Oh yeah, another example. Yeah. Nostalgia Nerd. I love his videos. Yeah.
Who kind of cover and we cover things from a more British perspective, as opposed to because I remember back in the day you'd often have people kind of thought for example there was a video game crash here in Europe back in the early 80s, as there was in America, when there wasn't. Computers were a big thing here, and so we didn't have that massive downturn in the market.
Exactly. Yeah.
And kind of but now that there's more sort of a different worldview, you have different YouTubers coming from all parts of the world. You have more people interested in different things as opposed to just one perspective, and can actually talk about their different scenes intelligently.
Interesting. Yeah. So I mean, just to stick with the tech toy example, because you made a video on it and we actually did something about it too. It took me 6 years to actually find somebody at Tech Toy that would talk to us, because either people were telling me, "Oh, I'm not responsible for anything PR related," or "I don't speak English." I was like, "Okay."
Which barrier? Yeah.
So AJ tells me all the time, "Oh, I would have given up on it already."
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but it's rewarding when you finally get enough to.
And my friends always tell me I never give up on people.
That's the thing. It's like if I ask somebody, you want to do an interview, and they're like, no. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, some people maybe they think that no one's actually interested when people are. It's like the Retro Hour guys. They wanted to do they were bugging Andy Crane, who used to host Bad Influence, for ages to get a video, and people aren't interested. And finally he agreed to it, and it ends up being a very popular episode, because turns out people are.
Right.
There's kind of that side of things as well, and people are just kind of maybe as well a bit shy about actually talking about things.
That's I mean our number one problem is guests tell us my English is too bad. I'm like, well, nobody cares about your accent. We just want to get your story. But it's interesting. I mean, for example, our third episode was about the Peruvian Z64 scene, and I actually find that some of our content is actually referred to in encyclopedias and books of researchers about video games. I go, wow, hey, SeaWorld is mentioned in a history book. So it seems that more and more people should try to contact the pioneers and getting more of the stories preserved.
Yeah, because there's so many stories from so many scenes, I'm sure, that just have not been told. Because I mean, everything's either focused on like American history or European history or Japanese history, when there's obviously so much more out there.
Right.
But if I'm not mistaken, you are not doing interviews in your YouTube channel, right? That's not one of your things.
I have kind of I do have things in the pipeline as far as actually doing interviews go. So
okay.
There was one particular like my next big games company documentary where I'm trying to get an interview sorted out for and go off to Cambridge and do it.
So I hit a soft spot here. in a way, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's about, I think, it's kind of one of those things, like, again, it's like, how do I change things up? I mean, like, you do, like, the documentaries and they're good, but, how can I make them even better? And it's kind of, that's one of the things.
Right. Well, one thing I always do is, people are often getting back to me saying, well, I have already been interviewed 50 times. Why do you want to interview me? And then I'm like, okay, because I'm asking you different questions and maybe I'm triggering something that you didn't think of. So that is actually what I try to do. I look at interviews the pioneers or the VIP person did to other sites or other YouTubers. And then I would say, okay, what was never asked before? What could I ask? So maybe that's also a way of approaching people. Well, that's just my personal experience.
Yeah, sure. And
but it's interesting to hear. Yeah.
Some people are kind of honed in it. Some people are perhaps a bit less forthcoming. But if you get like them in the end and it turns out it usually goes well, doesn't it? You can surprise them.
Oh yeah. And even if it doesn't go well, we can edit it and make it sound like it went well.
Exactly. Magic of editing.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this never happened to us, that people told us, this interview was absolutely horrible. Please don't release anything I said.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder, did it ever touch you when YouTube changed algorithm or changed how payment was done or something? Because in the recent 2 years, YouTube did a lot of experiments, and some people said, there were videos like, my YouTube channel is going to be down and I'm going to stop making money and I'm poor, I'm getting poor, whatsoever. What's your opinion about the changes of YouTube?
I mean, there were kind of changes in ad revenue that were a bit annoying. I mean, the annoying thing a lot of the times with YouTube is that, they don't tell you anything. So all of a sudden this happens and it's like, oh, right, okay. And so, I mean, as far as like people like getting videos flagged and that, I mean, I know a lot of that was kind of like various like political channels, which didn't really affect me because, I mean, my channels, there's nothing really political in my videos usually. So, but, I mean, what's annoying is like the lack of transparency more than anything. Like, I wish that YouTube were a bit more open about like the algorithm and like what their plans are, because that's just kind of the annoying thing. But it happens a lot. Like, it happened with Patreon recently, a few days ago as well. Like, suddenly they changed their financial operations from the US to the UK, and it had quite an effect on creators, because like suddenly people's payments were getting marked as fraud or fraudulent, and it's like, oh. So some people got hit badly by that. I mean, I've kind of been lucky, like touch wood, in that I'm not being majorly affected by anything, but always got to try and, keep your ear to the ground, see what's going on as much as you can with YouTube.
Now, Patreon actually had a bit of controversy maybe a year ago or so, when they decided that they were going to change the way in which creators got got their money, they were going to take a chunk out of it. And they actually responded when content creators complained and said that, this is not going to work for us. They went back and they said, sorry, we screwed up, and, put it back the way it was.
Yeah, it was kind of it was something they kind of felt they had to do. I mean, because they want to they want to try and make sure that people get paid up front, or that people have to pay up front, because it can be kind of awkward for some people. It's one of those financial things, and I'm not exactly one with like an accounting brain to like know like the ins and outs of why they wanted to do this thing. It was again, it was just transparency. Just tell us about these things, like maybe to get our input before just saying, right, we're doing this in a couple of days, lump it.
Right. Now, YouTube, conversely, YouTube has a lot of. I've seen a lot of people talk about the inherent problems with YouTube in that people will flag the videos or make a copyright claim against them, and YouTube doesn't tell you anything about it. Like, you can't find out who's making the claim, you can't find out what the reasoning is, and there's a lot of accounts that are just sort of there to make copyright claims against stuff that you may have made a video completely on your own, made your own background music for it, done everything for it, and they're still putting in a claim. And
it's ridiculous.
Right, and for that whole time that you're fighting it, you're getting no revenue from that.
Yeah, that's again another thing. And sometimes you want to like seriously fight a claim, like in order to actually fight, you've got to give like the fraudulent claimant basically everything.
Right,
like
right.
Your name, your address, like all your details, before you actually find out theirs. It's like again, it's like YouTube just again relying too much on the algorithm, trying to make it all computer controlled, and still kind of struggling with it. I mean, YouTube. I mean, it's and it's especially. I mean, it used to be like back in the day, like YouTubers could just get by with ad revenue alone.
Right.
I mean, it's not really like that anymore, and so kind of people more and more have had to find like side projects, side interests, or like getting sponsorships, like doing sponsored content, which is kind of the more traditional way of going about things, I suppose. I think that's kind of where YouTube is perhaps headed, more of a hybrid between new and old. And we'll see what happens with that.
Sorry, now I lost track. As I said, you are making YouTube like your main thing. That's like the dream of many youngsters, I want to make YouTube for a living. So what are you telling those?
You gotta stop saying youngsters, because you say that word and it just I just feel like we're old. You're like, there's youngsters these days.
Okay. No insult intended. I'm sorry. I just wonder if it's a good idea to be a YouTuber full time nowadays from zero,
from scratch,
or if you should have a backup plan just in case.
You have to have a back. There's some people. I follow a guy on YouTube, and his whole thing right now, he's got Patreon followers. He's putting these videos out. He's living. He's traveling across the country, and he's living in his Jeep, and that's the whole gist of his thing, right? Yeah. But the dude's like 26 years old, so okay, that's fine. When he's 50, he's not going to be doing this anymore. So he's got to have something to fall back on, because it's not self-sustaining. At least, again, when we're 70, is YouTube even going to exist still?
Yeah, who knows? I mean, I think I was thinking YouTube's got to be something that you start as a hobby. You've got to enjoy it. Mm-hmm. I mean, and it's not for everyone. Like, if you try like to start it from scratch, like as a full-time job, it's not going to happen.
Right.
That's kind of how I feel, anyway. But yeah, I mean, especially like, kids, they see, I don't know, Ninja playing Fortnite and getting all these ridiculous followings and think, hey, I can do the same thing, but it's not that it's not that easy.
No.
I mean, yeah, sure, he's got into a position where he can play games for a living, and he's probably already made enough money to be set up for life, but it takes a lot of luck.
Right.
You've got to be lucky to get into that position, as well as like put the work in. to build an online following.
Right, exactly.
And so, well, as I said, you did this media thing. You even graduated in it. So after YouTube, you can simply be a video director or producer or something.
Yeah, I could do that. I could go into like the actual proper filmmaking. Could go into education. I mean, I'm whatever, what works out there. I can throw a hand at. I'll have a go. I'm kind of that sort of way inclined. See if I enjoy it or not. So yeah, I have things to fall back on. If YouTube ended tomorrow, I'd be all right.
Oh, that's good to know.
Let's go over to what's the other one?
Vimeo.
Vimeo, yeah. Just go over to Vimeo.
Yeah, going to Vimeo or like Twitter video or whatever.
Yeah.
Facebook. Everyone's trying to get their own thing running.
I wonder, is there any YouTube video you regret doing? I like tough questions.
I wouldn't really say there's much stuff I regret. I mean, obviously some stuff I look back upon now and I'm like, ooh, that wasn't as good as it could have been or whatever. A couple of things like, I don't know, what's one, like Tomb Raider maybe. I mean, I just sort of feel it was a bit rushed, that one. Just a couple of things. I wouldn't say I regret them. It's just, if I'd done it later, I could have done a better job. That sort of thing. But it's all kind of part of finding your voice on YouTube, finding your style. You do things that perhaps weren't good at first, but they get better over time. So, all part of the process, really.
Right.
I mean, some YouTubers are deleting their old videos because they think it's not meeting the quality reference.
That's what happens when you look at stuff that you've done. This is why when I release a podcast, when I put a video up, I don't ever look at it again. Because if I look at it, I'm going to go, oh, God, and take it down.
Yeah, cringe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that does happen. I mean, I've never taken anything major down. I've taken down some, like, rubbishy, ranty videos, but nothing. I don't think I've ever actually taken one of my... The only time I've actually usually taken an actual, like, proper video of mine down is if it's got a claim on it. And because I'm not having someone make, bollocks money from the work that I've done.
Right.
So I'll take it down and then re-edit it.
I see. And what's the video on the contrary, that you are the most proud of?
Videos that I'm most proud of. There's a few over the years. I was proud of doing the licensed games series. I think that was a pretty big project back in the early days. Street Fighter, the movie, was one I was very happy with. Generally, a lot of the company documentaries as well, I feel was happy with. Probably the biggest one though was the not a game one actually, the Heroes of Wrestling is probably the one that I kind of point to and say that was pretty much exactly how I wanted to do that, and it's one that I look back on fondly. Or the Peter Molyneux 4-parter. I think those two are my best ones. If I was to just pick ones out, they're not necessarily ones I'd show first people because they're long. Like the Heroes of Wrestling one's like an hour and a half long. It's like feature length, but those are the ones I'm happiest with. Yeah.
Yeah, with long, that was a discussion we had internally too. That podcasts are too long, interviews are too long, but it actually depends on the contents. When we released Mike Clark's interview a few days ago, we got really good comments in a few hours. So I was like, okay, this was really spot on, But that was probably basically because he told in the interview how awful it was to work in the offices of Psychnosis and how the office was full of rats and falling apart and stuff. Right. And everybody likes to laugh to hear those stories rather than about the games he developed.
Well, also, if there's content, if it's interesting, if you've got a 2-hour podcast or an interview and you're having a discussion through the whole thing and it's engaging, and if you're engaged as an interviewer, then it translates over to something else. If you do a 2-hour podcast and the last half hour is just kind of so.
Yeah.
So
How's the weather?
Right. Then you're going over a little bit beyond what you should be doing. But as long as you can keep the stuff going, then
kind of going back to the algorithm and like the YouTube, like how YouTube's changed. I mean, YouTube has kind of changed to make long form content like this, like my videos, or like the podcast and that sort of thing, much more viable. Like, because it kind of changed like the metric, like from like views to watch time as like their main metric now. So it's minutes that they measure. So because it used to be like the received knowledge a few years ago, like you shouldn't make a YouTube video longer than 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But now, well, especially if you want to put like mid-roll ads in,
right, yeah,
the video has to be longer than 10 minutes. So which is why you see loads of videos that are just, for whatever reason, they're like, there's not 10 minutes of content there, but it's 10 minutes and 1 second long.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm sure you've seen that a few times.
Oh, yeah.
So it's kind of made, like, actually doing, like, long videos more of the way to go. Those are the projects that YouTube really likes to promote.
So, okay, so let's switch to emotions maybe. Do you feel different since you are successful in YouTube? Do you consider yourself a big YouTuber?
I had to give an autograph last year, and it was the weirdest thing.
Yeah, it's weird when that happens. I mean, obviously, like, sometimes if I go to, like, specific events, like if I go to, like, a Play Expo or whatever, where, like, I'm kind of featured, you know, that kind of makes you feel like, you know, a big fish. Because, you know, you'll get people coming up to you saying, oh, you know, I mean, it's still like a trip for me. Like, if I get recognised in public, it's like, oh, you know, thank you. I mean, I'd never be an arsehole with it. I mean, but I wouldn't consider myself like a big YouTuber. I mean, I'm still just YouTube. It's just a job, you know. But it's a cool job.
I remember AJ's reaction when a video game con announced that Scene World will be visiting them. AJ said, oh gosh, I'm in trouble. Now they know I will be coming.
Yeah.
So
it's weird, yeah. It's cool though. I do enjoy that, like when you go to events, and it's full of people like with your interests as well. So everyone's got that sort of thing in common.
So maybe you should make a lesson for AJ how he can feel more comfortable about getting recognized and writing autographs.
Yeah, I don't know. You never really get comfortable with it. It's just experience, I guess.
Yeah.
As it happens more. I mean, I remember the first time I was recognized, it was really weird. I was in a casino, and one of the staff, and this is like about 3 a.m, so I was pretty drunk. And it's a few years ago, and suddenly something comes, oh, you're like Kim Justice, and like, oh yeah, and it was that was a trip. That was like the first time.
Wow.
and so yeah.
Well, that happens.
Yeah.
So I wonder, when people approach you to be interviewed, like I did, do you actually make a background check, or are you open for anybody? Well, maybe it's a weird question, but I just wonder if at a certain, I
had to send my fingerprints.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, let me explain why I asked that question. I think at a certain level of being known, there will be tons of people inviting you for interviews, and you have to decide what you agree on and what you put down.
This is true. I mean, I generally don't do that much in the way of background checks or anything. I mean, I had a look and see like what you guys do and how relevant it is, and I thought, well, obviously it's quite relevant. You do computers and that, so yeah, sure. And so, but I mean, I'm always kind of happy. I mean, at first it was more awkward, like in the beginning, like when you do like your first couple ones, because it's like you're a bit like afraid, like it's like, oh, what am I going to say? You know, am I going to just die on camera, sort of thing? Like, and it's going to be just a dead air pain. But yeah, it's cool. I don't really. I'm open as far as interviews go.
Okay,
it's all good.
Yeah.
There's never dead air because we edited it out. It's not live.
That is why all our podcasts sound so good, because we remove all the bad parts of it.
Yeah.
Well, we had some surprising moments sometimes, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So, I don't know.
So where can people go to find out more about what you're doing and where they can subscribe to you and join your Patreon and all that?
Yeah, okay. My YouTube channel is, if you just search Kim Justice, then ideally I should be the first one that comes up. Just look for the little fat man, that's my avatar. I'm also on Twitter. You can follow me at KimXXXJustice. I'm on Patreon, patreon.com/KimballJustice. I'm on Facebook, although I don't really go on there that much. And yeah, that's pretty much. I have like various other social media things. I have an Instagram, but I can't remember the URL for that. I've only just set that up. I do videos. I release videos most every Monday, and I often do streams as well, where you can see me watching rubbish old games television.
Probably on Twitch, I guess.
I'm going to be moving to Twitch soon, but I usually do it on YouTube.
Oh, YouTube Live. Okay.
Yeah. But I want to try and get the Twitch going. I mean, once the weather cools down a bit and it's a bit more bearable to stay in my place for a decent amount of time, then yeah, I want to try and start getting Twitch going. Because all the people I know are like doing it now. It's like they're saying it always seems like lots of fun, and I enjoy streaming. It's just too hot at the moment.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Slave next to a computer all day.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's me pretty much. That's my social media.
Awesome. And we will put links to all of that in the podcast.
You can also, before I forget, you can also find my writings. I also write at Retronauts, and I do articles on weekdays about various news items.
Cool. And we will put links to all that in the podcast description below so that people can go and check that out.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for taking the time. It was really great to hear about YouTube and all the things behind them.
Yeah, cool. No, I've really enjoyed it. Very cool experience. So yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. See you later. Bye.